It's just after dawn on June 12, 1962. A cold, heavy fog smothers San Francisco Bay, muffling the sounds of the waking city. Inside Alcatraz, the most formidable prison ever built, a guard on morning count walks the steel catwalk of B Block. The silence is absolute, broken only by his own echoing footsteps. He stops at cell 138, belonging to inmate Frank Morris. The man is in bed, apparently asleep, but something feels wrong. The angle of the body is unnatural. The guard barks an order, gets no response, and reaches through the bars to shove the inmate's shoulder. What happens next triggers one of the largest, most baffling manhunts in American history. The head doesn't just turn. It rolls clean off the pillow, thuds onto the concrete floor, and stares up with painted, lifeless eyes. It's a dummy, molded from plaster and crowned with real human hair. Frank Morris is gone. How did three men escape the most secure prison on earth with nothing but sharpened spoons, stolen raincoats, and sheer audacity? This is the story of the perfect Alcatraz escape, and the certified genius who masterminded the entire plan. To grasp the brilliance of this escape, you first have to understand what they were up against. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a declaration. Perched on a lonely rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, the rock was designed to be the end of the line. Refortified in 1934 as the nation's first maximum security civilian penitentiary, it was built for one purpose: to hold the inmates who were too violent, too notorious, or too skilled at escaping other federal prisons. With hardened steel bars, head counts every hour, and guard towers manned by sharpshooters, a physical escape was considered impossible. But the true warden was the bay itself, 1.25 miles of frigid, treacherous water with currents so powerful they could sweep a swimmer into the Pacific Ocean in minutes. Of the 36 men who attempted to escape Alcatraz over its 29-year history, nearly all were recaptured, shot, or vanished into the bay, presumed drowned. The system was designed to be unbeatable. But in 1960, the system's greatest challenge arrived. Inmate AZ 1441, Frank Lee Morris. Morris was an orphan and a career criminal, but he was far from an ordinary inmate. He'd spent a lifetime in institutions and had become exceptionally good at leaving them. What truly set him apart was his intellect. Prison records show his IQ was 133, placing him in the top 2% of the population, a bona fide genius. He was the mastermind. At Alcatraz, Morris reconnected with men he knew from a prison in Atlanta, brothers John and Clarence Anglin. The Anglins were tough, seasoned bank robbers. Having grown up in the swamps of Florida, they were reportedly strong swimmers, a crucial skill for what was to come. Along with another inmate, Alan West, they secured cells next to one another. The pieces were falling into place. The unbreachable fortress had just met its match. The plan wasn't a desperate gamble. It was a masterpiece of patience and ingenuity that took 6 months to execute. The core problem was monumental: how to get out of a locked cell, inside a guarded cell block, on a fortress island. Morris broke it down, one obstacle at a time. First, the cell walls. They were thick concrete, but Morris identified a critical flaw. The small ventilation duct at the back of his cell, just 6 by 9 inches, was set in aging concrete that was being corroded and weakened by the salty sea air. This was their exit. Without proper tools, they improvised, using spoons stolen from the mess hall and a makeshift drill built from a broken vacuum cleaner motor to painstakingly chip away at the walls. To mask the noise, they worked only during the prison's daily music hour, when the sounds of accordions and guitars filled the cell block, camouflaging the faint scraping. To hide their progress, they crafted fake vent covers from painted cardboard. Once through the wall, they entered an unguarded 3-foot-wide utility corridor, a secret highway running the length of the cell block. By climbing the plumbing, they could access the area above the cells, a dark, dusty space right under the main roof. This became their secret workshop. Here, they solved the problem of the nightly bed checks. Using a homemade papier-mâché of soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper, they sculpted disturbingly realistic dummy heads. They painted them with flesh-toned paint from the maintenance shop and topped them with real hair collected from the barbershop floor. Placed in their beds, these decoys would buy them precious hours. Finally, there was the bay. To conquer the deadly water, they needed a boat. In their rooftop workshop, they undertook their most ambitious project, building a 6 by 14-foot inflatable raft from over 50 stolen prison raincoats. They meticulously stitched and glued the seams, then used the heat from nearby steam pipes to vulcanize the rubber and make it watertight. They even carved paddles from scrap wood and converted a concertina into a bellows to inflate their raft. It was an astonishing feat of engineering, assembled in secret, mere feet above the heads of their guards. The plan was set. The tools were made, the path was clear, and the gear was ready. On the night of June 11th, 1962, they decided it was time to put their perfect plan into motion. This story is an amazing example of what people are capable of, and if you find tales like this as fascinating as I do, think about subscribing to the channel for more dives into incredible history. Okay, now let's get back to the night they vanished. On the night of June 11th, 1962, a thick fog blanketed the island. The conditions were perfect. Inside their cells, the men tucked the dummy heads into their pillows, arranged their blankets to look like sleeping bodies, and waited. One by one, they slipped through the holes in their walls into the utility corridor. But there was an immediate hitch. Allen West, the fourth conspirator, couldn't remove his vent cover. The concrete patch he'd used to conceal it had hardened, sealing him in his cell. The others couldn't afford to wait. Morris and the Anglin brothers had to leave him behind. The three men climbed the pipes 30 feet to the top of the cell block and grabbed their raft and gear from the workshop. From there, they ascended a ventilation shaft to the roof. At one point, a loud crash echoed through the prison as they broke through a ventilator fan. But astonishingly, no guards came to investigate the noise. Once on the roof, they were dangerously exposed. They moved like ghosts across 100 feet of rooftop, staying low and out of sight of the guard towers. They shimmied 50 feet down a kitchen vent pipe to the ground, landing near the prison showers. They were out of the main building. Next, they had to cross the prison yard. They scaled two 12-foot-high barbed wire fences and crept to the northeast shoreline, a known blind spot for the searchlights. There, at the water's edge, they used the concertina bellows to inflate their raft. Sometime after 11 p.m., Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin pushed their raincoat raft into the black, freezing waters of San Francisco Bay and paddled into the fog. They were never seen again. The next morning, when the guard discovered the dummy head, the prison erupted into chaos. The lockdown was instantaneous as the alarm blared, kicking off one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. Boats and helicopters swarmed the bay, while agents scoured Angel Island and the Murrin Headlands, where authorities believed the men were headed. In the following days, clues began to surface, but they only deepened the mystery. Shreds of raincoat material were found on a beach near the Golden Gate Bridge. A deflated life vest, made from the same material, was found floating just offshore. A paddle was also recovered. The FBI believed this pointed to a tragic failure. Their official conclusion, after a 17-year investigation, was that the raft had failed, and the men had succumbed to hypothermia and drowned, their bodies swept out to sea. But the official story is far from the only one. No bodies were ever recovered. Allen West, the man left behind, provided a full confession, detailing their plan to steal a car on Angel Island. Coincidentally, a car was reported stolen in that area that very night by three unidentified men. A Norwegian freighter crew also reported seeing a body floating in the ocean, but it was never retrieved. Over the decades, more tantalizing clues have emerged. The Anglin family claimed they received Christmas cards for 3 years after the escape, allegedly signed by the brothers. In 2015, a photograph surfaced that purportedly shows John and Clarence Anglin on a Brazilian farm in 1975. The most shocking evidence of all came in a 2013 letter sent to the San Francisco police. It began, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The author claimed Morris died in 2008 and his brother Clarence in 2011, and offered to surrender in exchange for medical treatment for cancer. An FBI lab analysis of the letter was inconclusive. To this day, the U.S. Marshal Service keeps the case open, and all three men remain on their most wanted list. Their faces aged by computers to show how they might look in their 90s. Oh, did they make it? Did a genius, two tough brothers, and an escape plan built from spoons and raincoats actually defeat the unbeatable rock? Or did the cold, dark waters of the bay claim them, as they had so many others? The official story says they drowned. But the legend of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, a legend of defiance, genius, and the perfect vanishing act, lives on, leaving us with one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. If you love exploring incredible stories from history, make sure you're subscribed to Deep Crimes Uncovered for more deep dives into the events and mysteries that shaped our world.